So, it is raining. It really is. So hopefully sound on and vision on. It is day 4 of week 29. And I'm out in the woods. And it is very slippy and muddy. But hey, I'm getting exercise. That's the thing that counts. Whew. So yes, what have I been doing? Working and sleeping. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'm on a long working shift today. So years. Not a great deal to talk about today, really. Although I got my Patreon payment, so thank you to my Patreons. And I've already spent it. Yes. But what on, you might ask? Well, it's come to my attention that if I'm going to produce Project Morlock and start again with the whole YouTube thing and see if we can game the system a little better, because people's attention span is kind of shit. So a couple of the other things that I was discussing with Harlequin, and feel free to chime in. I mean, I understand that it's appreciated that it's appreciated that people subscribed anyway, and that there are 30 subscribers to the whole thing. 32. We lost one. A subscriber left, and I don't know why. They didn't say. Perhaps they were just tidying up their YouTube things and they weren't that interested. But the Urbanagogi thing is that I need to make the standard videos a lot shorter and encourage people more to send in their video of what they're doing. And I wanted to tie it in with an upcoming film that sounds pretty interesting, though I haven't seen it yet, called 2040, which is about, the world is doomed, but this is what we could do, and this is where we could be in 20 years' time if we started taking action immediately. Now, I'm aware that, the big areas of pollution in the world are kind of like, major corporations, but those major corporations only do what they do because we pay them to do it, collectively as a planet. And there's this guy that's done this, sort of documentary along the lines of Super Size Me, and has tried to imagine a world in 20 years' time where we're not randomly fucking up the planet. And I truly do believe that the planet is the one cause that can really unite humanity. And if we unite humanity, a lot of the other crap that's in the world will go away. If the consumers of the world stand together and we use less finite resources, and we create systems where resources are produced locally and there's less scarcity, then a lot of the other things, a lot of the intolerance, a lot of the racial divisions, a lot of the falsified divisions that, the masses, the 99%, have imposed upon them, and occasionally they believe, will also vanish. I mean, I think definitely the young people of the world, this generation of people that are just about to become adults, are a lot more conscious than we ever were. I don't recall particularly thinking about the environment outside of, well, I suppose we did, because, CFCs, it was discovered there was a hole in the ozone layer. It was announced that CFCs were the main cause, carbofluorocarbons, which is not an ingredient you'll see on much stuff. We're eating a massive hole in the ozone layer, and cases of skin cancer were going up, and we stopped using them planet-wide because people wouldn't buy products with CFCs in it, and so it's possible. So we did change significantly. We sort of voted as consumers, and that made a massive difference. That changed the world, because if you bought deodorant, or air freshener, it was CFC free, or people didn't buy it because there was a lot of policing of purchasing preferences. But the thing is that carbofluorocarbons were invented. All the CFCs that were in fridges and stuff like that were basically brought about by the same guy that had put lead in petrol, which also led to air pollution. And now we're in a similar situation. Air pollution is bad, it's rising. Delhi has had to have people with the last digit of their number plates. If it's odd, they can only drive on certain days. So it is possible for us to change. So given that there is a history of people going, nah, that's not okay, and not doing that thing, I think there's good cause for hope. And you've got to have hope. We've got to have some hope, even in Project Morlock, where it's like, okay, we don't expect you to not fuck it up. We are all independent librarians, where we're going to make sure that we know things in case things fall over, that we have a library of books where we can rebuild civilization. We have some spare technology that we can put away, that's easy to run, that we can run from, say, solar panels. Things like that. They're sort of for when humanity inevitably does, do itself harm. And it's all around us, the capability to do harm. The UK government, through its austerity, has caused 130,000 excess deaths, according to a study done by the Civil Service. I mean, that's almost like a class-based genocide. You've got another Tory MP that had said that people that she was watching that were living on government welfare should be put down. And that's a member of Parliament. I mean, it's not a conversation in a pub. I mean, admittedly, she said it a couple of years ago, but I don't think that makes any difference. It's not like she said it when she was 15. She said it a couple of years ago and tweeted it out. And unfortunately, it did take us a couple of years to figure that out. But also, you've got people like Jacob Rees-Mogg that said that the victims of the Grenfell fire disaster in London, where in order to make a tower block visually acceptable for people that have paid a huge amount of money for houses in the area where Grenfell was, so they made it look prettier in order to tidy up the skyline, but they used a highly flammable substance to coat the outside of the building, which contributed to the deaths of a lot of people, who were all, working class stroke poor. Poor in the Western sense, not poor in a rest of the world sense, They're still probably counted as people in the 1%. They didn't have to worry about it. But he said it was their own fault. So this is this kind of class system of blaming poor people for being poor when you yourself are rich on the backs of those poor people because you're making use of capital. And that sort of hatred can only come from fear, because for every one of them there are 99 of us at least, even in the Western world. And we're taught to believe that our own efforts can make us seriously rich, which is a lie. Opportunity can make you rich, but unfortunately, as is always the case, wealth is the surest sign of poverty. If you've got wealthy people, you've got people in poverty. Until who you are and what you can do is important. social media seems to go that way as well, where you've got people posing in front of Learjets. You've got people ripping off other people in order to become rich. You know, you've got the sentiments such as keep them poor, because you can only have rich people if there are subsequently many, many, many poor people for every one rich person. There are more billionaires in the world than ever before. You know, Bernie Sanders has been quoted as saying, you know, that billionaires exist is a sure sign that there are problems with equality, which made a lot of wealthy people very angry indeed, because he was right. And you know you're right because first they try to ignore you, then they try to ridicule you, and then they arrest you. So that's the surest sign you know you're doing something that's morally right. Same with talking to people about, say, going vegan or eating less meat. People become outraged for no reason that they can, you know, put a finger on it, but they're basically saying to themselves, you know, they're basically admitting with that anger that they're aware that it's the right thing to do, but they don't want to do it. So that's you know, the cause. And I've noticed that just with my decision not to eat beef anymore. So I'm a couple of months into that, and yeah, it's a privation of a kind, you know. I mean, but it doesn't twinge, you know. I need to get off dairy as well, because, you know, not eating beef yet still eating dairy is an issue. And then there's the whole thing with not eating beef and then still using leather, say, for instance. That's a problem, and that's a level of hypocrisy. But in this globalized world, unfortunately, we're all kind of victims of our own hypocrisy, and we've got to say, okay, let's stop trying to find the hypocritical sort of inference to that, where, you know, someone's wearing leather shoes and says we must save the planet, because that person didn't have a lot of choice as to whether their shoes should be made out of leather or not. Is you've got to start somewhere. You've got to draw your line and stay behind it, and then take another couple of steps back and draw another line and say, right, okay, I need to stop eating meat. I need to stop using quite so many animal products, or I must only use sustainable animal products, or animal products that don't harm the environment. And it is a road, you know, which I hope to, you know, it's a journey I hope to take you on. But I want to sort of say, right, okay, so here's, you know, some nice food you could eat that isn't using animal products. You know, yes, I have to pay slightly more for my sustainable honey. It's like, you know, it was like when I switched to olive oil rather than vegetable oil for cooking. And yes, it costs a little more every month. You know, but out of my huge income, it's a couple of quid. But it's a lot healthier than random vegetable oil or random canola oil. You know, at least olive oil isn't doing me, you know, excess harm. I've switched to free-range eggs. You know, those aren't big things, but they do cost you more, especially if, you know, you're counting the pennies like I do. So yeah, you've got to start somewhere. You know, just pick a thing. Pick a thing that you're not going to do. I mean, that's why I chose the not eating beef. It's not much of an imposition, but I don't demand it of everybody that watches this program. I just picked something I figured, you know, I can probably do that without too much of a stretch. You know, and I used to eat a lot of tin chili con carne because it's convenient, but it contains beef, so I don't eat that anymore. You know, what's the impact of eating fish? I mean, once you boil it all down, really the only thing you can do is either go vegetarian or vegan. You know, or once you get to the point of non-dairy vegetarian, where you're concentrating, you know, you're thinking, well, this is an ethical choice. It's going back to the concept of integrity. It's a, you know, our consumerist lives are mired in hypocrisy of what we would like to do, ideally, and what we end up doing. Yeah, I'm a hypocrite. You know, I know meat is largely unethical unless you've hunted it yourself. And I still eat some meat and fish. But it's an experiment, you know. I'm quite happy to try that on the behalf of other people, and so I've got a story I can tell. I can say, yeah, okay. I mean, where I work, we do a vegan burger. I haven't tried one yet, but perhaps I should. I've tried the Bird's Eye vegetarian beef burgers, and yeah, they're pretty good actually. I was quite impressed. But the downside is they do taste, they taste like burgers, but they taste like cheap burgers. So, there is a difference. I've always preferred to eat slightly better quality meat. And maybe I'll go, vegetarian stroke vegan stroke, occasionally eating organically raised and as close to cruelty-free meat as I possibly can. But let's have an explore. So to reiterate yesterday's video, which I uploaded today, so there was a bit of a delay. It's due to time. I meditated on, I meditated on, getting more money as a result of getting more hours, and that happened. I dwelt on it, and I concentrated on it, and I watched for opportunities, and I said yes, and that was perfectly okay, and it manifested itself. So I don't know whether that's just down to forces outside of my control, or whether it's down to let's do this thing. Whether it's down to just being open to opportunities. But I mean, that sort of meditation where you meditate on something and you sort of like imagine what it would be like and you plan, makes you more open to those opportunities as a default. So, it works. So yeah, but it does mean I've got less time. I've almost got one less working day a week, because I'm working 4 extra hours with an extra hour tacked onto my weekday shift, and another 3 extra hours, so it's about 7 hours a week. But I'm also starting earlier on Saturdays and Sundays, just generally now. I think the idea that I come in the afternoon on a Saturday and Sunday at about 2 o'clock doesn't really work for them very well, because they've got 5 hours of being open on their busiest days and no one to do the washing up, so they start running out of cutlery and stuff. So yeah, I start a couple of hours earlier than I used to on Saturdays and Sundays. So it's probably more like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours a week. So it's anywhere between 8 and 11 hours a week I'm down, and it takes me an hour to get to and from work. So it's kind of hard. You get kind of swept away. But yeah. So so the Patreon payment, what I've done with that is, what I wanted for this sort of shot is a little monitor that I can attach somehow to the gimbal, and I think I've figured out how to do it. And yeah, so the idea, so I bought a little 3.5-inch screen that I'm going to build an enclosure for, hopefully eventually 3D print one, that snaps onto the side of the gimbal. It's a little HDMI screen designed for Raspberry Pis, but it runs off USB power, and this gimbal has a USB power connector. So yes, so hopefully I can power the monitor and have it connect to the mini HDMI slot on here, but we shall see. So yeah, so hopefully I'll have a little doohickey that will enable me to see what I'm shooting, so I can frame it better, because all I'm using at the moment is the tiny little selfie mirror, which is not allowing me to frame the image. Because although personally I prefer having fewer but more engaged people in the audience for this, and I love the fact that you feel that you can comment, and I always read all the comments at the moment. There may come a time and I make people angry enough that I start getting abuse. And I can always stop and go back to urban-agoge, because, yeah. But I'm just a dude, yeah? I'm just a person trying to say, okay, what is my response to the world being in a somewhat deplorable state? And what is, let's have some solutions rather than, continually claiming that all the problems are, insurmountable. Let's put some solutions in the hands of people, which is why I want to start growing my own food and generating my own power and collecting my own water and filtering it and stuff like that. And ideally by the end of next year, I'd like a sort of off-grid solution where, if everything, fell over, I'd still have a little bit of electricity, I'd still have a little bit of food, I'd still be able to access water. Maybe that will involve some expense, but, it's me, so, if I can make it cheaper by some means, or I can build it so it's cheaper, or I can develop a system that will allow me to make it cheaper. Maybe I can 3D print a carbon sand filter and put a water butt in my garden. Maybe we can do something along those lines, so I've got some water to hand. Maybe I can talk about sensible amounts of prepping. With my shop this month, I need to do some more. I need to prep some more. I need, more food in the stores, ideally vegetarian food and stuff that will keep for a long time. I also need to do a cooking segment, so you can go, right, okay, well, this is a curry. This is me making a vegan curry from scratch. I mean, the thing about vegan curry is nobody's got a problem with eating vegan food. Religiously, I mean, or morally, so you can feed a lot of people without worrying about it. That's what they do at the Sikh temples all around the world. And Amritsar, they feed 500,000 people a year, I think, or is it a month? Feed a lot of people every year. So yeah. So I should have the little framing screen, and the reason for that is I need to turn out a more professional product for when I launch Project Morlock. So yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it. I've got very little time left today. Probably got another couple of hours before I have to go to work, and then I've got tomorrow off, so hopefully I will get lots done tomorrow and I can get another video out for you and get some stuff sorted out. So, thanks for watching. Do take care.